Welcome, cadets, to Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek. My name is Matt, and all rise for Admiral Pete. Hello, Pete.
Progress is the acceptance of identity, not the negation of it. Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek. 4 episodes of 101, Kids These Days, and 102, Beta Test, comes to you now via Interspecies Vomit Monitor.
And news from the fleet before this episode leaves orbit. Pete, it's always the case. We go from Star Trek to Star Wars, or vice versa. In this case, Star Wars news this week. The Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down from her head post there at Lucasfilm.
Long rumored, Matt, but it's amazing. A rumor that has lasted nearly the entirety of her 14-year tenure has finally come to fruition, being replaced, stepping up from his current role by Dave Filoni alongside Lin-Win Brennan. Really, the template here needs to be James Gunn, because why would you take a writer-director out of his best destiny, if we may dip back into a Star Trekism for a moment there, given that he's headed up Ahsoka Season 2, that ultimately the Star Avengers film will be under his pen, if not certainly under his watchful eye from the director's chair.
It seems to be a great combination here. Lin-Win Brennan, who has come up through the business and technical end, first at Industrial Light and Magic, then at Lucasfilms, and Filoni, obviously, with his creative writer, director. I know he's not an actor, but dealing with actors, all of it on the creative end. So you have two incoming co-heads, one who is technical and business oriented, one who is creative and creator driven. It's a great idea. It works for DC Studios, and let's start the next 14-year run of success at Star Wars.
Over to Marvel, Matt, where it has finally been confirmed in marketing materials officially that Wonder Man will release all 8 of its episodes at once on Tuesday, January 27th, and how this changes our approach.
It certainly does, and I will say, Pete, a rare victory lap for my soothsaying versus yours. When there was the trailer, when the trailer was released, debuted at New York Comic Con, I said, first as a question, did they just say it's all at once? And you said, I don't think so. And we went back and looked, and it did not say that. It kind of felt like it, and there's been this weird under the table toe touching in terms of they didn't want to say that it was all at once, and then finally they have. So yeah, Pete, the fact that everyone can consume all 8 episodes at once does impact how we are going to podcast it. So Pete, I ask you, with its debut on January 27th, how will we cover this 8 episode, half hour-ish per episode offering?
So we're going to split the season into 2 parts. We will be bringing you our thoughts on the first 4 episodes on Saturday, January 21st. Sundays, of course, are Starfleet Academy Sundays from here on out. And then we will bring you the second batch of episodes, the final 4, on Saturday, February 7th.
There we go, easy peasy. And it's a journey I'm looking forward to, in part because is Disney Plus and Marvel just burning this thing off? Are they not? Is it a novel way to release? I'll admit, Pete, I was down when they did a similar release schedule for Ironheart, which was two chunks, I believe, maybe about 4 or 5 days apart. Echo obviously was all at once as well. But bottom line being, that seems to have done well for those shows, and bring on a Wonder Man discussion.
At DC Studios, Matt, James Gunn has confirmed a Mr. Miracle animated show is on the way.
I feel like animation is a good place for Mr. Miracle. He's a character that I know a little bit of, and I kind of think of him more as having space and cosmic connections. I believe his character origins are more earthbound. But yeah, animation is a good place to take a more, let's say, challenging character or challenging concept and to make it happen with lower stakes. It's a good idea.
And then back to Star Trek, Matt, where there have been eye roll allegations of a coordinated PR campaign on Reddit against a company that laid all of its PR staff off prior to the recent acquisition.
Which is, I mean, you have laid it out here. There's PR people now at Skydance Paramount, but not left over from the old regime, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Pete, of course, hardcore Redditors. Pete, I'm not talking about the ones that go to the Phantastic Geek subreddits. Those are all angels. But of course, hardcore Redditors believe that Reddit is the place that there's going to be a an astroturfing campaign to boost the show up amongst Redditors. I mean, come on, give me a break. Pete, it's all I know is this. Pete, lately I feel like Paramount can do no wrong when it comes to PR. And if there's any Paramount people listening, you're all just doing a great job there. That's what I say.
Fantastic.
And now class is in session.
Following our spiffy new Star Trek 60 years card, Matt, against a vibrant backdrop of the cosmos, Captain Nahla Ake narrates how Starfleet Academy long ago taught the best and brightest to explore the universe. Then fate handed them an unimaginable loss in the burn, making it all go away, kind of like a previously on. It's a stealth previously on Star Trek Discovery.
And I think that stealthy nature, they are so wise to do it. Pete, completely unconnected from almost everything. Last night I rewatched Thunderbolts and I had to explain to my wife, like, oh, so just, don't forget there's like 18,000 things that you need to know. I wouldn't call it homework, but there is a whole bunch of stuff you kind of need to know to fully understand the movie. Versus here we are with Academy. If for whatever ridiculous reason you've never seen Star Trek Discovery and don't know the goings on in the 32nd century, um, hey, there was this terrible thing that changed things the way they were, and then one day there was loss, the burn, and it all went away. That life of Starfleet explorers and lifelong exploration. Okay, 1000% caught up insofar as, what we need to know in regards to the burn. Like, stealth is the way to go these days, where for whatever reason, I mean, Pete, can you imagine if Deep Space Nine premiered today and people would be like, what's with this weird British French guy who all of a sudden is a robot? And we got to know the whole robot thing before we watch the Deep Space Nine thing? What? Different times, different tools. Here we are. Pete, tell us about wee Caleb.
Little Caleb looks to the stars as Mom Anisha rehearses their secret code. He points to the moon, and she explains one day they'll visit Sol 3, aka Earth, to find a home. Caleb's automated teddy bear Scrap confirms. Caleb asks why they're there with that man, who Mom explains is Nusbraka, very good at helping her find food, not so much at the transparency about how. Scrap puts it plainly that he's a pirate. He may also be a pilot. Caleb tells her it's okay if she stole, and she tells him they'll always be together before Starfleet officers enter with handcuffs. We are then treated to a sweeping shot of Federation outpost Pikaru that identifies the star date as 853724.6 and an announcement declaring a level 3 sandstorm is inbound.
Pete, I know this. You can always test your own reality. Are you a character in a story? Are you living in a holodeck, in a simulation, in the Matrix, and so forth? Here's what you do. When you're having a really good day or heartfelt moment, even if it's a challenging moment, that's when you say, "Don't worry, loved one. Things will always be good," or "We'll always have enough food," or "We'll always be together." And then if someone comes in to break up the status quo almost immediately, then you know you're in a story. And also arriving as part of this chaos, we have news that Nuss has been arrested as well. Nahla arrives, noting that Nuss Braca has stolen from the Federation. He says he offered a solution to a starving woman, but now the officer who got caught up in the midst of this theft is dead. Nahla is sending Nuss Braca to a penal colony. And as for Anisha Mir, Pete, it's a little trial here so they can say people's names a number of times so it's
Mm-hmm.
clear to we the audience, not a criticism,
The
pilot episode
pilot.
observation. Yeah. Her charge that would have been theft is now felony theft since the pilot is dead and she's being sent to a rehabilitation camp. Don't worry, she'll have visitation rights. It's not prison. um, Pete, I am sad to say Star Trek once again capturing the here and the now for their
Yeah.
stories in the there and the then.
Maybe that's why we have such a reaction to it, Matt. Caleb will become a ward of the Federation. As she's taken away, however, Anisha tells her son not to trust Starfleet and the Federation. Later, Ake goes to see Caleb alone and introduces herself. She tells him about the Little Blooms school on Bajor. He's never been to school, and she promises he'll see his mother again soon, eliciting a hug. But as she pulls back, her comm badge is gone, and he tells her he left his bear elsewhere. As she bends to pick it up, she freezes, putting together his plan as he uses the comm badge to access a console and breach the hull, which she arrives too late to stop. She orders him found amid a lockdown.
All of it a great moment showing character interaction. I mean, this is exactly what you want in the beginning of a pilot episode. We'll discuss when this became the beginning at a later point, but everything here is running as it should for our introduction to all these characters. We have a time jump, and it's 15 years later. A shuttle rocketing toward the Vrillik penal colony on Turoth. They're bringing prisoner 1174, which is kind of 47 ish backwards. 47, the Star Trek number. They're bringing in Caleb, who gets identified like that because Pete, 15 years have happened, and he is a man now. Um, he's gotten all this other stuff added to his rap sheet, of course. The guards rough him up. Uh, and Pete, maybe I'm saying that too lightly. The guards are not being professional here. A fight ensues. One guard gets his ear bitten off.
Mhm.
And Caleb uses those buzz batons on the guards and takes over the cockpit area, which conveniently had been separated by a mirror force field, but the force field is now gone. Drama ensuing.
Yes. And uses the computer to search rehab centers for mom. But before the search can be completed, a guard pulls him out of the pilot seat and the shuttle skids across the surface, pinning them to the ceiling. He gets up and regains control, but the engine goes offline and he manages to get it back up just in time for the search to come back empty. As he demands the computer try again, a tractor beam locks on, but tells him he's not their prisoner. He tells them he's not their prisoner as the shuttle is pulled up, taking us to the not quite credits title card.
Which is a really good instinct here as well. We're not at Starfleet Academy. We haven't, in the chronology of the story, we have met no one from Starfleet Academy. Indeed, I guess you could say behind the scenes in the timeline, they are starting to put together thoughts of a Starfleet Academy, but no one's told us. Quick, tell us what show we're watching, but the full credits we have not earned yet. Um, because we're not there and we don't see anybody involved with Starfleet Academy. So, quick, again, tell us what the show is, which is separate from the place they're all going to go to. And Pete, take us to Bajor. Am I saying that correctly?
Bejor.
Regardless, we see Nala telling someone that a sacred institution is being interrupted. It's two
They're
kiddos.
doing it. It's the prophets, Matt.
It's about ice cream. And fess up and negotiate your terms here at Little Bloom School. It's, again, a really great way. We're now seeing drastically different perspective here of Nahla Ake, who's gone from whatever, badge clad cog in the machine of a broken federation to now clearly working with the little kids at Little Blooms. Like, it's, again, this is what you need to do in a pilot episode.
Yeah, and the free spirit of Holly Hunter completely on display here. We knew that she was going to be barefooted at Starfleet Academy, but now laying the groundwork for that, right? The earthy, crunchy um, teacher at Little Bloom's Early Education Center, where children play beneath trees, and Admiral Charles Vance, the chief officer of Starfleet, sneaks up on her to note that though she left Starfleet, what she just did was some serious diplomacy. But again, it is a pilot episode, so therefore we need to learn that she is part Lanthanite because in her 422 years, she's learned a thing or five. As she gives Charlie a big hug and offers him some ice cream and whatever he's there for, the answer is no.
Obviously, when Charles Vance was introduced in Discovery, played by Oded Fear, he was pitch perfect time after time after time. I didn't know I missed Vance as much as I did until all of a sudden he
Mhm.
shows up and brings naturally this sense of authority to the character, and it's just a wonderful return for him. Indeed, Pete, not to break our own chronology, but for an instant, I was pleasantly surprised to see how much he was in this episode and the next
Yes.
episode. That's the right instinct there. I know, Pete, we got to increasingly spend time with these young kids, and you and me, we are now the middle-aged, the olds. We are more advanced than we are Caleb
Speak
and
for
so forth. But
yourself, man.
but hooray, Vance, hooray, Oded Fear, hooray, the mummy.
Yes. And he's there because he has to explain they're recommissioning Starfleet Academy in San Francisco. She thought the Federation put all its warships on the War College. Um, but after 100 years, with the burn behind them, it's time to rebuild. And he wants her to be chancellor, which stops her in her tracks. But wait, she resigned in disgrace. He points out it was Starfleet who separated the mother and the child, of course, the mirrors there, but it was Ake who took responsibility. Vance said she did not have a choice. She believes she could have done more, but he points out it would not have changed anything. They were in triage. Starfleet couldn't make exceptions. A lot of people agreed with her, but he did not, and admits now he was dead wrong. But these cadets that we've not yet met are inheriting a broken world they did not create. They'll have to clean up, and there's no one more suited to help them than this partial Lanthanite who was there centuries ago when Starfleet was at its best. And she tells him not to say it, but he says that's why she became a teacher. She tells him she won't make promises to more kids she can't keep and literally walks away. But he tells her they have found Caleb Muir alive.
I'd love to know who in the Star Trek production world dreamed up the Lanthanites. Like, when was that dreamed up? Obviously, we have the Carol Kane character of Pelia. You know, was it perhaps? Regardless, I don't need to get off on a Pelia tangent here. Here's what I would like to say. Obviously, we've had aged characters in Star Trek before, whether it's Q or the Guinan and the Elorians and robot people and this and that the other. It's such a handy tool, I think, the Lanthanites or half Lanthanite, whatever you want to say with it, to be able to say to an actor, you have all this gravitas, but guess what? You don't need to come in for latex on your face. You don't need to come in
Mhm.
for dots down the side. Oh no, we're doing a crashed ship thing, or we're doing a beach scene. I need to do dots all the way down your head. You could just roll on in at normal time for normal hair and makeup, but you get to play an alien. Because that's what the story calls for, as opposed to somebody else where it might be, Paul Giamatti and all the stuff on the head. Like, again, what a handy storytelling tool to make Holly Hunter perhaps a woman of a certain age, but in terms of the character, now this 400-year-old person with particularly memory of a time before the burn. What a what a handy tool. And again, I think it's designed for actors to say her, say Carol Kane, say whoever. You just come in regular time. The pointy ear guy, he comes in early. This one comes. You roll on in at 8 o'clock for a 8:45 camera call, and we'll have you good to go.
A shuttle heads to the Tarathan prison where a leather clad Ake tells the guards to take the muzzle off Caleb, but they warn her he's the biter. She wants cuffs off as well. She's heard he hacked the Imperial security system. We don't know what empire, though. Maybe it's Torath. I don't know. Matt, knows his stuff. She tells him what Tarathans do to thieves: cut off a finger at a time, then hands, then make prisoners dig tunnels with just their wrists for the rest of their short but miserable lives. But he doesn't plan on being there that long. And poking fun at him for the ruse previously, she says she'll turn away and close her eyes so he can make a break for it. But there's a great acting moment here as he stalks her, and just the differential to Holly Hunter's 5'2" there, and the moment of her playing that he could do anything, but there's that little bit of indecision that allows her the moment there to acknowledge that what what she did, was a catastrophic decision that was made that day. And she's been looking for him every single day since. But, Matt, what have the Tarathans done with Starfleet that would make it possible to call this show Starfleet Academy?
I'm glad you asked that because people might be worried. Oh, this is just a prison show. Toroth has signed a treaty for low-level offenders to commute sentences into service. And indeed, joining Starfleet Academy would, let me check it, would count as such public service, given that Caleb's mother is still alive and out there. This is the only way that he can get out of this prison and be able to continue the search. He slowly accepts. Later on a sleek shuttle, Nala is looking through personnel files. By the way, Pete, you can run. I don't know to what degree of accuracy here. If you find those files to be a little blurry, you can actually run them through ChatGPT and say, "Sharpen this image," and you get a whole bunch of text back. Like, you get that. Again, I don't know if it's accurate, but we may have more info on these people with the personnel files. But as for Caleb, he will need a regulation haircut. He does not look happy about that. And though I believe the Athena might be yet unnamed, or maybe it's named here in radio chatter, but
Hmm.
they're headed into Athena's Shuttle Bay 7. As for when they will get to the school, wait for it, Pete. Trailer moment, trailer line. That thing is the school.
The USS Athena's interior saucer sports a Starfleet Delta atrium that, as we board here, echoes with the digital Dean, that of course voiced by Stephen Colbert, explaining the classes will be held on board and at the campus in San Francisco. And registration is now open as dots bustle hither and yon around the largest set in Star Trek history. Commander Laura Thok introduces herself as first officer and will bring Ake to the bridge. Final cadets being processed, and they're ready to head to Earth on her order. Her quarters were rebuilt to her specifications, and her library of physical books transferred from Bajor. Caleb balks at a uniform, but Thok, the daughter of Asmaret from the Klingon house of Dakhatas and the Jem'Hadar lineage of Kabaj, okay, she gives him lower deck latrine duty for 6 months as interspecies vomit monitor and 200 push ups, stopping the Klingon cadet Crag and telling him to put his bag on Mir's back.
Crag is a Klingon who yearns for a valiant life. He adds that his first name is Jaden, or Pete, as the kids nowadays would say. He's like Jaden. Like, oh, it's a cool modern name, man. Um, they meet as they go up the stairs. They have particulars to, you go here, you go there. They meet a Saurian who sends Crag to sciences and declares Caleb as currently undeclared. It's almost like Pete, we're rooting for Caleb to have quite the story arc this season. Caleb does, through the transporter arch, now in a uniform and now with a haircut. Pete, welcome to the future.
Pretty cool that the uniforms allow for an undeclared student. They have gray highlights around them rather than, the commands and the sciences and the operations with their different colors. And we see the next familiar face in Bob Picardo's The Doctor, giving out the hypo sprays here and asking, where exactly did Caleb come into contact with Aurelian lung maggots? But they're in his lower bowel.
Uh, it's giving Robert Picardo's the Doctor great stuff to do. He's apoplectic. It's just everything you have always loved about the Doctor is here. Caleb is given a shot for those parasites. Watch your bowel movement, or hopefully no movement. Just humor there. Boom. The Doctor's back. This is just good stuff here. We head to the bridge, and it's Captain on the bridge. I like the design here. The newbies get identified, the new officers, and so forth. Particularly with Lieutenant Rourke, who will find teachable moments as they happen. Nahla takes the chair. She adjusts it. Nice moment, a little bit of humor here. Then addresses the ship. She is surprised, and so we begin. Through struggle, the stars. Welcome to the Academy for the first time in 120 years. You'll learn from some of our greatest officers. USS Athena is named for the goddess of wisdom. When called, she will carry us to the stars. Give more of yourself than you know you have. The challenges that came before today have helped define you where you're at. It's an inspiring speech. It really is.
And that wall highlighted behind the cadets as they listen is just a treasure trove of names, both familiar some unfamiliar, and then some who inhabit our real worlds today.
Yeah, I personally am amused that both Jonathan Frakes and Alex Kurtzman now have Star Trek
Kristen Beyer
counterparts.
is an admiral.
Yeah, and there's a whole host of names there. I mean, I know we've previously discussed Tawny Newsome, et cetera, et cetera. A bunch of Olatunde Sami, just you know, directors and producers of recent Star Trek on there as well. Again, I'm just amused that whoever is into creating memory alpha entries and so forth, now they need to go through all that and be like, Aaron Byers, producer. Aaron Byers, fictional character. Olatunde Sami, director. Olatunde Sami, fictional character. Just go through all that. Um, so enjoy Memory Alpha, folks, because now there's a whole bunch of new characters in Star Trek.
And then the doctor, of course, arrives at the bridge to let them know they are capable of departing, all the physicals having been completed, vaccinations, Matt, because science in the future is important. These cadets, they're springy little zygotes ready to go.
In the hallways, we see Sam having trouble talking to newbies. Genesis says hello. Are we friends now? Genesis has not been to Earth or any planet before. She grew up traversing the stars. Jaden bumps into her, losing his binoculars. Mr. Britishy, who weirdly does, I believe, Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, does not get properly named like until way later in this episode, or possibly even in the next one. Certainly, at the very least, he does not have this moment of going, "I am Caleb, I am Sam, I am Genesis."
Right.
Here, but he
In
is
the
the first.
subtitles.
Subtitles do help. He's the first
Yeah.
Kionian to make it to Starfleet. Caleb is ready to make him cry. The doctor arrives, reading a hormonal spike amongst all these, brash young folks ready to watch the drama or be part of the drama or throw down and so forth, which is an amusing moment, certainly.
Picardo has um, said that it's different, that it was a challenge reading dialogue that is going to performing dialogue that's going to resonate with younger people, but like ably here, right? Their hormones, stress hormones, like they're in a bouncy house, like he's just good at it, and that they have a club activity um, situation coming up here, and trying to get them recruited for the opera club for their breathing.
And we have Caleb and Jaden now, maybe first day pals. I think we, the audience, go, "Oh, yes, it's the beginning of a friendship. Awesome, great." Jaden watches birds. He was taught to see the beauty in things. And a warrior does not let a friend face danger alone. Pete, part of the part of the reason this is such a great first episode and part is this: tropes work. When tropes are overly generic, we go, "Oh, I've seen this 1,000 times." Tropes work, though. We've all been at the first day at school or the first day at work. We've all had these new introductions, and all of this is so incredibly relatable, even though far few of us are Klingon future doctors or holographic first in our lineage to go to Starfleet. Those particulars are what makes it feel unique. The fact here that they're, again, there's almost not a way to say this in a positive way. It kind of feels all uh, just suggestive of negativity. But the fact that they're going through all these familiar things is what makes the story work so well.
Hence the idea of trying out for Parisi's squares, right? Or all the other activities we see at the club fair, and some real hero worship here by Sam for the doctor. Though she was programmed to feel 17, she's only existed for a little over 4 months on Cask, a colony of holograms, so they prefer photonics.
And again, people meeting people is a great time to be sharing character backgrounds. As for why the Doctor has aged, he says he looks ruggedly sophisticated. He added an aging subroutine so people got less freaked out across the the years and decades and centuries. Boom, problem solved, right? I mean, yes, they did the same thing for Data, but that's what you do when you have real people playing characters and the real people age. Um,
Love too that in addition to his service on Voyager, that they incorporate his time on the Photostar with uh, Captain Gwendala, in addition to Dal and Murph. So the first of several Prodigy shout outs that happen in this pilot.
No, it's probably a good time to mention they probably should have included the Cerritos from Lower Decks in the 60th anniversary thing, but I guess same for the because the Protostar was not in there as well. Do I remember that correctly?
It was not. No, no Cerritos, no Enterprise G, interestingly enough. I mean, we've seen that update with each of the different shows. I think it will continue to update that this one is just for the 60th anniversary. Uh, they were maybe pressed for time on it.
Either way, we have Caleb entering a round data room. Pete, it may be a set that gets rearranged to be a series of rooms in these two episodes, seeing as how I think this is a round room with a center and an AR wall around the edge that, again, might be like a zillion D rooms.
Stellar cartography later on.
The aquarium that's not an aquarium, it's actually San Francisco Bay, even though
Right.
it's got poorly rendered marine life in it. We'll get to that when we get to that. Regardless, Pete. Oh no, Star Trek is recycling a set. Let me go back to the Next Generation Science Lab. I mean Battle Bridge. I mean movie Enterprise, movie Enterprise room. I mean the room where they made Lal, etc., etc.
Planet
So,
Hell.
eh, yeah, and on and on and on. But Caleb enters this round data room. He overrides subroutines. He flashes back to his time with his mother. He sends out that secret code that we heard at the beginning. He checks for messages. None are received. He leaves a message from mom. Is she getting these? He was going to see Earth with her, and now he's headed there. Genesis overhears him leaving the message. So, will she rat him out or shake him down? And she pauses. She wants to learn how to kill a man with a toothbrush, prison things, and he'll have to dress her in the morning and pre chew her food. Again, a great pilot moment to say here's a lady with authority, a slow sense of humor, a dry sense of humor, um, and somebody who, at least as far as we know her now, might rat him out or might shake him down. Uh, Again, it's what I'm just going to keep saying it, Pete. It's what you want to be doing in a pilot episode.
I did not think I was going to come to enjoy Bella Shepherd's Genesis as quickly as I did. We knew that Sam was really going to be a breakout, but I think the thing they nailed in casting is how likable all the cadets are, even the Ionian for what he is and the role that he plays. So, bravo to our Toronto based casting, and then internationally, of course.
So this discussion concludes with him saying that he has no toothbrush and does not plan on staying. However, if you think Caleb is all bad, Pete, Genesis reiterates that he did a nice thing for his new friend. We move to the bridge where strange readings are being read. Perhaps it's an ionic storm. It turns out they're not too far from the Badlands. That's right, audience. Pause for applause. We referenced a thing. We might do it again in the next two episodes a lot, maybe a little too much. I don't know. But perhaps this can be a teachable moment, which, Pete, for as much as I'm being slightly sarcastic here, um, why are they about to get into this terrible situation and not immediately go to Earth? Because they're there for teachable moments. That's story excuse enough, and even that might be selling it a bit short. She says go out of warp, drop out of warp, and go to max impulse. They arrive and appear to not be at max impulse. I have engineering questions here, but the good news is there's also not much shear, so maybe there's science and navigational reasons. But wait, Pete, what's that?
It's a trap. They've tricked their sensors, these 12 objects inbound, and that we've got to the nature of this vessel protect the kids anytime something in the cosmos might threaten them. In addition to giving them opportunity, we've got to keep them safe. They are the future. Very impressive sequence here of these objects striking the hull and immediately beginning to ensconce it as we cut from the surface of the atrium all the way inside, and Picardo leading the troops there, breathing as your friend.
Indeed, all the cadets sent to their dorms, which presumably Pete are well quite safe places. Caleb and Jaden see this threat overtaking the view, indeed growing across the hull. It is programmable matter, and the helm can't take them away from this threat. Behind the Athena, a mystery ship coalesces. Let's not forget, Pete, it's the 32nd century. You can have magnetic parts of a ship come together. We've seen it in Discovery. It is the Venari Raal, and the Athena can't fire at it. The ship is tethered and shakes. Pete, even in the 32nd century, people still like the tethers and the grapplers. Starfleet Command is called, and damage reports pour in. The doctor is dealing with multiple injuries. Not enough holographic help there as well. So, again, kind of in universe answers for why the cavalry does not arrive in Starfleet Command. There's a mobilization thing. There's this, there's that. There's not enough doctors, but there is the doctor. Pete, take us to a damaged hallway.
Thankfully, no casualties, but if they could avoid another hit, that would be super helpful. But the stress and strain on the hull beginning to show, the dots and the other supporting uh, droids, I guess we've got to call them there, making the rounds. Genesis comes to, as does Crag here, and even Caleb trying to figure out. And this is the genius of this pilot. On their way to school, they go through their first mission here. And with a teacher to guide them in that Thok has been struck. She has debris in her midsection, and they need to assist her.
Yeah, they can't transport to sick bay. Note the damage. Genesis takes Thok and the group to a medical classroom. Caleb also recognizes the sound coming from the hull. Programmable matter is resonating. Uh, Also, a flashlight is needed. Sam arrives, pressing a panel on the wall, powering the lights. Again, it's not a trope when it works. This notion of the new character arrives. I know she's not brand new to us, but her newness, her new thing, her power, her talent, highlighting the situation literally and figuratively. Um, Initially, they don't have proper cadet or even pre-cadet access to the medical classroom. Thok unlocks access, gives orders for you get a hypo, you start scanning, you get me something to bite. Again, there's just glowing moment after glowing moment here. Part of what you get when you create a character who's half Klingon, half Jem'Hadar, who now, in addition to being different than the cool, calm, and collected, slightly hippie, slightly no wearing shoes, slightly curl up in the captain's chair. Okay, your number one is going to be the opposite of that. Plus, is also the yes drill sergeant person, so she gets to yell at these people. This is all again slightly familiar, but working in every way.
Gina Yashir's filmography on the surface, not somebody you would ever figure might factor into Star Trek, right? Okay, comedian, um, and the way she's already through two episodes just inhabited this role, and we said in our preview that the instructors here would be the secret sauce. Yes, we're going to come to love. It's about the kids, right? It's passing the baton, but the way in which she does this, and in a similar way, the scene that occurs on the bridge here with the bad guy, right? With Paul Giamatti, who we've already seen, albeit 15 years in the past, updating us. Okay, now he's got the tic tac toe shaved to the side of his head. It's a great affectation for the makeup there. But this rivalry with Ake, his connection to her past, to Caleb's past, and to bring the rest of our crew up to speed here, um, and really give us this sense of peril, like an origami chicken.
I bet you there's someone out there on internet who has complained that this show involves a captain who has a threat with a baddie from 15 years ago who now all of a sudden has shown up right where the captain is, and how Star Trek would never do this back in
Nope.
the day because it's Star Trek 2. Again,
Yep.
it's a form. They're not stealing, they're not copying, it's not, one for one. It's just it's comforting and familiar. We go back to the medical classroom. They overhear part of this bridge conversation. Um, we also hear that one of the passengers sent a message leading to Nusbraka being able to intercept them. Hey, it's Caleb's message. The cadets start to scuffle, but Genesis gets them back on track. Pete, one day she'll be a captain, I think. On the bridge, Braca wants the warp drive. The captain, needs 10 minutes. He sees she's lying, but she can't let him tear it up. Giving it to him whole hog gets everyone off the ship. Right, it gets the baddies off the ship right away. It saves the goodies, etc., etc. Their chemistry is wonderful. Pete, I know we've had holographic communication like this all the way. I believe the earliest in my Star Trek memory, aside from briefly on the Defiant Bridge, maybe season 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there for Deep Space Nine. I know it was used greatly in the beginning of Star Trek Discovery, and maybe that's one of the things
Mhm.
they got rid of when fans were angry about things and such. Have we ever seen holographic communication used like this to actually boost actor chemistry? I don't think so.
I mean, I think with what you mentioned on Deep Space Nine, right, that you would have uh, what was it, the Javert esque scenes with Cisco and the other officer that he had the beef with, right, in the Maquis,
Yes,
and
yes.
playing that out so deliciously. Like you have to use it for its dramatic effect beyond the exposition of characters will now talk to each other, right? Like you mentioned Star Trek 2 before, that Kirk and Khan never even inhabit the same space in that movie. Okay. That'd never be done today. It couldn't be allowed today. Um, and you really have to stop and think about it because, oh, all right, they do it over the screens and it's the conceit of the film, of the storytelling. But just by having Braca get in Ake's face here and to have her defiantly blow at the hologram to trim the transmission, right? Okay. You allow these two actors to go toe to toe.
And I mean, why are you getting Paul Giamatti and Holly Hunter, if not for Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti to share the screen together as the story calls for, as the conflict calls for? She obviously the series lead number one on the call sheet, he recurring, but this is why you got the two of them. Caleb calls up to the bridge with information about the programmable matter. He's going to hack it via the atomic coefficient, science, science. The captain gives him one shot at this. With that, reference is made to Academy Mode and Ramcon 6. And look, if you know how the episode unfolds, that all gets explained later on. I will say, to the credit of the moment, we're coming off of atomic coefficient, and if the harmonic resonant, blah, 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 and you go, okay, science stuff. And then they say Academy Mode Ramcon 6. You kind of then say military stuff. My point is this: the episode does not tip its hand to the fact that this is a ruse against the baddies, and a ruse in the best sense for the audience.
Yeah, and Ya being the pilot here, also relaying it to the audience that that's the fun one that they'll go through as we're back in the trauma with Thok there, that they've got to pull the jagged piece of metal out of her side, and the milk goes everywhere. Sam noting it's actually a lot of blood.
Um, yeah, these are the things that you get when the conceit of your show is not everybody is really good at what they do. Not everybody has seen this a bunch of times. Not everybody knows, yes, for this type of alien, you need a this computer, do that. Like it's the newness of it. New but old, as Robert Picardo said in some interview. It's the same but different. I said, oh man, we've been talking about that for any genre thing we've talked about ever on a podcast. But I digress, Pete. With the shrapnel pulled, Crag is now told, now you have to save her life. Meanwhile, Caleb is typing away with his plan. Sam is typing away next to him. Must have been fun on set when they're just tapping at the air. They need someone outside of the ship. And Darum, Pete, now he officially gets named.
Mhm.
Darum can do this without a suit. Why, Pete? Because he's Kyonian, bozo. Because I don't want to say the other word, but Pete, they talk like the youth. I'd say they talk like the youth well in this episode. We'll talk about the next episode in a little bit. But Pete, he's Kyonian, Buster.
And I like too that when he's with Genesis. All right, so what's Kyonian? Is this like genetically engineered? Is this something we're supposed to infer, that he shifts his form there, that he looks a little bit more reptilian, right? Kind of like a snake. I gotta say, I'm not in love with the design. uh I was wondering, like, is this CG? Is this full on prosthetic? I think there might even be elements of both. Strangely, of all the stuff, like behind the scenes stuff, I've not seen anything about this. But what's the conceit that, okay, he's got the ability here. Now it makes sense that he's able to go outside and endure the conditions for as much as 8 minutes here as they're walking him through with the magnetic boots.
We got a story clock. We got new people's things revealed and so forth. Meanwhile, we see the pirates are in engineering. Back to Sam. She has found the frequency, but the signal needs to be sent through the main deflector. I mean, Pete, can we just for one sentence, reflect on the idea that this main deflector across the history of Star Trek, it's been used every which way, including deflecting things, but it's the all-purpose. Sometimes it shoots stuff out, sometimes it pulls stuff in, sometimes it's a this, sometimes the Borg attack you on it. Darum's progress is slowing. Genesis tries to hack the transporters, but she lacks access. Pete, it's an emergency. Okay. And then the doctor arrives because please state the nature of the emergency. If you're going to do fan servicey shout outs make them hit the center of the target. That's a great moment there. And the doctor, gives the command code in order to grant access to the tactical systems. So it's all one big team effort here as Darum pulls the atomic coding. Caleb tells the bridge he's ready. They need an ancillary spot to pull this off. It's just, we got the zips and the zoops and the zaps everywhere, Pete.
Yes. So with all that under consideration and the trauma for Thawk being attended to here, Sam walking Crag through what needs to happen around Thawk's heart, except she will require significantly less cheerfulness in her final moments.
And indeed, as she gets sewn up, Thok is briefly dead, but comes on back, and dying gets the blood pumping, which I think is an important moment because it is showing a sense of stakes, but also humor. It's not something that Star Trek does often, which is both kill somebody off and bring them back moments later. Like again, there's just a sense of fun here and a sense of madcap adventure. And Thok is obviously experiencing it, but it's also she's the character telling the audience, "You can die, you can briefly come back." What a moment!
In engineering, the Venari Raw trigger a warp core breach, and they need to evacuate. However, this is a ruse that Ake and her crew have really done so that they could get Caleb to do his thing. However, Braca is no spring origami chicken, and he knew that Mir would make a play like this. That hatred he told him to hold on to, it did keep Caleb warm at night. And the connection between them ever evident.
The two men fight. Pete's our episode director, our capo de capos of Star Trek here, Alex Kurtzman. He likes a shaky camera fist fight scene. Um, Oftentimes helped by somewhat contrasting lights, maybe some blue and some red. I don't think we get the blue and the red here. But as they fight, Caleb gives as good as he gets. He also is able to punch the he gets pardon me gets punched into the console where he's able to boop boop boop, program launched, programmable matter starts to come off the ship. And Pete, at the conclusion of this fight, the baddie ship gets destroyed. Braca runs for an escape pod, narrowly escaping Caleb. Um, Escape pods I feel like are notoriously super slow. I'm not going to greatly quibble why the luminous Paul Giamatti is not just immediately recaptured. I guess the ship is in really bad shape or whatever. But I think, Pete, it is to be continued with this Braca character. There's my
Because
prediction.
we still have some business here, and we need to take it to San Francisco. Really love the use of the song here, obviously covered, and the way that they really um, take a moment to meditate on the importance here of Starfleet Academy returning to Earth. I wonder how much is going to come up in the series that Earth was not a part of the Federation for a time, when Discovery had come 900 years to the future. But the nacelles stay in orbit, and the the part that goes down to the campus, right, descends, and we get these really meditative shots here, that I think it's important to establish a sense of place and the wonder as well that comes along with it.
Yeah, it's selling the evocative nature of the moment And that night, Caleb reflects on the search for his mother. He's told that the hearing committee has found that Caleb's message is indeed why they were attacked, but also that Caleb took initiative, putting the lives of others ahead of himself. He has demonstrated command potential, and Captain Ake has got a deal for him. He's restricted to campus for 90 days, plus 100 hours of menial labor. Uh, or you could give all that up, run, and end up having the risk of not finding your mother, because to stay here is the last best chance in order to find her. And then, Pete, we get some stuff about Nahla Ake here. She had a son at the academy, and he was killed at the burn. And she's had 120 years to think about how she could have been a different mother. You see, Pete, though she doesn't say it in the acting, she is as a mother to Caleb, who has lost his mother because of Nala's actions. Do you understand how it all fits together here?
I do, but I'm distracted by how much I appreciate this mission style set on a ship that frequently goes to San Francisco. I mean, this thing is gorgeous. The colors and the textures and even the tile of the sitting area by the fire, like they completely nailed this.
Yes, some elements of the Roby House, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, which happens to be in Chicago, but nonetheless, I mean, what a set! And frankly, Pete, for as much as it might be like, and I know that this episode was made a year and a half ago, et cetera, but for as much as there's kind of like, oh, the sky is falling, will Skydance love Star Trek? Will they make more Star Trek? This is a set, let alone the whole Academy quad and so forth set. This is a set that says, no, we're here for a while. We're here for this season. We're here for season two. And indeed, Pete, in case you needed Caleb to be a face of the audience, and maybe this moment be a face for Star Trek itself, since he's going to stay here at the Academy. Second chances don't screw it up. I do kind of feel like it is Star Trek kind of talking to itself.
Yes. But the fall semester begins in the second episode here with Ake explaining that in all her time, one thing that she's believed to be true, if you want to serve the galaxy, make your bed. There's echoes here of that famous Annapolis um, commencement speech there about the things you can learn every day, and the way to begin by making your bed.
Another is to get to class on time. Oh man, Pete, the young people watching this episode must be saying, boo, that's bad. Small successes until you're part of a tapestry of service. That's right, it's about more than yourself. The doctor talks about a self replicating mucus, a jar of goo, care for the specimen for 5 days. Pete, it's the Star Trek version of the old welcome to health class. You got to keep your your container of flour, or your
The egg baby.
the egg baby, the Cabbage Patch Kid, whatever it is. It's doing that. And again, it's familiar but different in a really Star Trek way. You, the students, might think this is easy. Well, if it gets on your skin, it'll replicate all over you. Sam laughs at the joke. And if indeed it gets on your skin, you get a C. If it kills you, you fail, which is a funny moment, too.
It is, and really making use of this set with all the cadets. And let's talk about the costuming, which they really did a tremendous job with as well, both form fitting and functional. I love with the ladies that you've got the different texture of the skirts, right? That it's kind of a vent on the side there and just provides a little something extra that, yes, does it seem militaristic that they've got the boots? It does. And we've already started to establish with the War College you know, rivals that they've got the camo and everything that this is still Starfleet, that it's exploration, that it's strange new worlds, and not just the shoot 'em up.
Yeah, and I think that clearly the production has learned from first and foremost the initial. Well, I'm thinking Discovery first season, how there was lots of maybe not complaints. There's lots of actor observation that those uniforms were ultra snug, not a lot of give, and then the collars were a pain. And then when Discovery went to the future, they did first an initial reboot and then kind of the costumes, then quickly figured out they need to kind of reboot it for a variety of reasons. I think how it appeared on camera was an issue. Um, but here we are with kind of all those lessons learned. I also know in Strange New Worlds, though chronologically earlier, they have costumes have a little bit more give, a little bit more appreciation for different body types and the fact that some people are curvaceous, etc. So I feel like it's all factored in here where, for all I know, Pete, the collars are still super tight, or it's like, oh man, better do salad for the 10th day at lunch today because these costumes are also snug around the middle or whatever, but they look authentic and also a bit more flexible again for body types or flexible for story or whatever it might be.
Yes, and then we would montage here across several classes with our goo mucus babies with us, but to have the rivalry of Caleb and Darum flare up in class. Um, Maybe the dialogue a little much at times, but again, you've got to traffic in these tropes to understand character.
Pete, this is within the. Hopefully, we are all inside the Star Trek tent. We are all Star Trek family here. I will say, I think you have brought up this notion of Caleb and dialogue to a certain degree, Darum as well. I'll say it now. Maybe I won't say it every time. I'll say it again a little bit later. There may be some dialogue issues here with Caleb where perhaps the people who are no longer the youths. I don't know how old writers Naga, Landau, and Jane Maggs are, but maybe there's a lot of reliance on, like, I don't know, dialogue that isn't perhaps at its best. More on that a little bit later when there's, well, more on that later, but it's said with love. It's said with appreciation for this episode, this show, the Kurtzman era, etc.
We have Thawk taking her cadets outdoors in the rain under this pergola here to teach them about overcoming their fear, and her dipping into her background once again, that her Jem'Hadar father taught her that victory is life. Her mother, that today is a good day to die, and that Crag backstory, is coming at some point. Why he different from Klingons like her, but that her cadets will stare death in the face as she, death being female, stares back. And of course, death has eyes because her cadets will not confront them, not confront death like spineless cowards, leading the one to run. She could always spot the runners here through Boothby Memorial Park.
Which is also a nice moment. It weirdly felt a little bit more fan servicey the way that the camera kind of lingers on it to be like, hey, do you get this? Do you remember this? Pete, sometimes we get architect of this world, Alex Kurtzman as director. Sometimes we get director of the Mummy, Alex Kurtzman as director, and all are welcome. I will say this here's what amused me about this scene. Okay, we all know the scene in a military movie or TV episode or whatever. You take those grunts and those maggots out there in the rain, and you yell at them before you make them do push-ups. Okay, great, wonderful, got it, right? Because it's break them down, build them up, blah 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 blah. Then somebody I propose comes along and goes, we have like half the characters are in prosthetics, and we're still getting to know these people and like what their skin can do for glue. Like nobody's waterproofed here. Plus the costumes are brand new. We haven't sprayed them down with water repellents that we could lose a bunch of the costumes. Great. We're going to take those grunts and take those maggots out in the rain. We're going to put them under a nice gazebo while we yell at them. Because this is a TV show that can't ruin all the makeup. It can't lose a day and can't ruin, probably $100,000 worth of costumes. So Pete, take us back inside. Take us to Nala's address. That is not fan service. It's a reiteration of our best here.
That, Starfleet Academy, right? That this is the whole point, to go where no one has gone before, and that we transition to the skyline there, the fireworks in the shape of the Starfleet Delta, leading us into the proper credit sequence. That I appreciate the symbolism, and I really like the sprout and the tree stuff. But I wonder, like, as the series goes along, seeing the buildings built, is that still gonna resonate, right? Like, it works now. Will it work in the future? And then I just wonder too, though you can hear echoes of previous scores in the credit music, I just don't know that it's like iconic enough.
I liked the visuals more than some other recent Star Treks. I never particularly loved the Picard title sequences. I think in part because I don't know who the originator was of like close up on hard metallic thing that slowly unfolds to be a metaphor for the thing. But I feel like everybody's done it. Star Treks have done it recently, and The Crown did it, and maybe Game of Thrones was the originator, except it was brand new and evergreen then. All I know is this felt a little bit different. I would agree. Can I hum the theme? No, not outside. What I think is a James Horner lift. Although I bet you, Pete, that use the they use less notes than the legally required amount for it to be a unique sequence. Therefore, it's probably just we chose some notes in the same key and instrument type that James Horner or whoever. Um, Maybe it was Star Trek 4. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen. But regardless, I was pleasantly surprised by this credit sequence. Not that I was out for blood one way or another, but having not gotten one at the top of last episode, having gotten a credit sequence at the end of the first episode, not sure if that's the credits, and then now getting it here, I I I was good to go with it. But Pete, as we go back into the body of the episode, sometimes you can tell when an episode is not necessarily written to be part of a two-parter. Let's say Discovery's at the other end. Clearly, it was always built broadcast for the first episode, CBS All Access, if you can remember that, for the next one immediately thereafter, Bing Bang Boom. As we enter the story here, Sam is nicely recapping last week's episode, which I was like a little unnecessary, but also appreciated because one way to watch this is not at the same time back to back. Now they have room assignments. It's time to learn your roommates. Caleb thanks Genesis for their success last time. Look, they both stopped at the same part. Are they roomies? Actually, she's on the left side, he's on the right side. But here's a tip: don't hook up with anyone in the first 6 months. Pete, is your screen fogging up?
My screen fogged up when I saw the Brickar cadet there from Star Trek Prodigy. That, of course, being Rock Talk in the original there. The one character who was not named in the pilot, and just to get that, a lovely bit of fan service to appear a little later in the episode. But yeah, you've got to do the whole roommate thing, and then for uh, the conflict to discover that the two boys who hate one another have to room together.
Oh man, Pete, I hope there's going to be some sort of arc, whether it's across an episode or multiple episodes, where two people who don't get along end up being forced together and learning to appreciate each other's difficulties and or differences rather, etc., etc., etc. We go to Nala, who's getting an earful about the doctor's mucus. We're told that the Federation would like to set things up in Paris, the traditional capital, or maybe Namibia, maybe somewhere else. But regardless, it's coming back to Earth. So maybe, Pete, there's your um, continuation of the storyline in Discovery, Earth not a part of the Federation. Maybe that's the acknowledgement of it, but also for new audiences, you're not like, well, you see, Earth, who's, by the way, the stand in for all of us, probably for Americans, Earth meant to be the stand in for the United States, and, went a little wayward, but now back to, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we don't need to cover all of that, but we have the discussion of it here. And I'll say this, Pete, used used in a way that I did not know would actually pay off towards the end of the episode.
How about the exo comp here named Almond Basket?
Pete, there are some people online who have had Star Trek ruined because this exocomp has a silly name. Pete, did you know it's never been done before? Except for when it was done with an exocomp character in Lower Decks, and it didn't actually break Star
Referring, of
Trek
course,
then.
to Peanut Hamper. Um, but the mission of the week here, Matt, that we have the special assembly of the Diplomatic Council to convene and host the banquet of the Betazed delegation um, amidst all this walk and talk to try to make nice and to rebuild everything they lost from the burn.
Indeed, and of course, welcome to it. For any race that could have been chosen for it to be the Betazoids, that is welcome as well. Um, as Nala makes her way to her quarters, Darum and Caleb are yelling at each other. They can't room in the same room. It turns out that they're both funny. She says, request denied. Darum out. Caleb stay. Um, and does he need more menial labor after hacking the exits? He wants to find his mother, but no one has evidence of Goja 5. And is it possible that Nusbraka lied to mess with his head? I will say, Pete, on the one hand, I was kind of watching this going, well, what do you mean that that Goja 5 is not in the Wikipedia? And again, it's like they did remind us, and I should know too, because I watched all of Discovery, the burn, the great, break in information and travel and all this. It's all there. It just kind of took me a moment to be like, well, what do you mean the encyclopedia doesn't have evidence of a place that's always existed? That's the conceit of a lot that's going on here.
And of course, Ake is a deadhead here as she puts on um, a record to her phonograph amidst the discussion from Thok that the Betazoids are bringing their youth delegation, that they are spurning or spurring, I should say, the moment, the activism that Ake and the Federation and Starfleet just might be able to use, taking us to the transition uh, to the atrium here, kind of like the cafeteria area of it, if you will, where Vance and Ake's war college counterpart, Commander Kelrek, meet for a confab.
We don't dig deep in this episode into the story potential of Starfleet Academy versus War College, but I think it's being set up here, and it's it's also
Hmm.
not being set up in a way where Kelrec is like, we don't need you. Blasting people is what's best. Like, there's the shape of it without overdoing it. Um, and again, coming from this, this is not a story that is overly relying on the history of the burn and all of that. But to say there was a need for the War College, now it can coexist with the with the Academy and so forth. Um, it's all great stuff for what I'm assuming is an ongoing story. Um, Captain Ake talking about how yes, the Betazoids are bringing children. Kelrec kind of dryly notes that this is a romantic nature. It's almost Pete like Star Trek is wondering, can you always stick with the old guard, or maybe the future is youth? Hey, what if you had one show that was about the old guard and one show that was about the youth? Then you'll have the future of Star Trek along with its past side by side here on Paramount Plus. Please renew the Secret Hideout Alex Kurtzman contract that runs out this August.
Perhaps symbolically, Matt, Vance makes it clear with the wall of names in blurry background that in front of the Betazoids, we're all one big happy family, right? Leaving Hunter there before we transition to that set with the um, the virtual wall in the background and our reintroduction to Tig Notaro's Jet Reno. She, of course, coming all the way from 900 years in the past to explain why physics hate her.
And while the episode can hear me preparing later in the episode to have questions about things like dialogue and camera work that I would consider to be less than their best, here, this is how you do. Okay, yes, you do need to introduce her to new viewers and maybe have a little sizzle of like, wait, there's more of her, there's other shows. Like, this is all, on a certain sense, de rigueur for a streaming show that's part of a story universe, but they don't overdo it here. And indeed, she was born in 2215, jumped almost 1,000 years in the future. Um, while she's giving this inspiring story here, I mean, can you imagine, Pete, someone from the past here before us? What a great lecture that would be. But Caleb is searching for Goja 5. But like what else? Caleb is ready to rewire the display more efficiently. And then he'd like to get into some of the real S, except Pete, he doesn't say the word S because he's a youth who uses the curses. And you might not have picked this up yet, but he's a bit of a rascal, a lowercase r rebel, you might say. Um, and indeed, he reintroduces himself, but she's asking about what he's about, that kind of who he is. But he can't name that cadet over there. And Reno talks about the need for connection, and she sees him as a genius who needs no one. But Pete, it's Starfleet Academy. We need each other.
Yeah, I mean, Tig Notaro is an absolute boss, and to have Star Trek just absolutely profit from her inclusion in these two series has been tremendous. For her to explain to Caleb here that old age and treachery always triumph over youth and a smart mouth, quoting, of course, the great Oscar Wilde. And the fun fact that he had to put they had to put glass over his tombstone because people kept trying to make out with it.
Pete, I haven't looked up to see if that one's true. Something tells me it might be. On the way out, Caleb gets splashed by Sam's mucus jar, and uh, luckily he quickly gets sprayed down by uh, what can be said as a holographic nurse or minder. He goes for a walk, and Pete, he feels chaotic, and thus the camera is chaotic. It's not the shakiest the camera will get in this episode, but do you feel his chaos because the camera makes us feel the chaos because the camera is moving? Do you feel it, Pete?
I do. And the hollow guide previously having sprayed him down, now that he's outside his permitted bounds, trying to bring him back, but he essentially puts it in a loop here with all the different requests that he gives so that he could be spotted by this young lady, what in her not Starfleet uniform. We know we're expecting the Betazoids, and I like the Fentonomics class joke here, but for them to have the discussion while he is literally on the fence, what with the snot on his uniform, um, is an interesting way to begin the relationship between these two characters.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pete. I was just taking off my jacket because it's so hot here, and you can see my muscles. Ugh. We, the camera, see that she has a metallic dot on her neck. Kudos to the story for making us wait on that one until more dramatically potent.
How
Um,
about the high heels that spring from the midsection of the shoe and not from the heel? Interestingly enough,
I don't know the origin of it. Yeah, heels without a vertical support. It's the future. Um, I did kind of wonder, as I think you were evoking in your recap there, Pete, like, oh man, the Betazoids are coming. I wonder who this person is. I bet you she's either holographic or a Betazoid kid or something. Or maybe the metal dot is some sort of block or whatever. Like, it's okay if we, the audience, are slightly ahead of things. Um, but with uh, him noting that he's escaped seemingly into therapy with her, the Betazoids, very therapeutic people. Um, he does not get her name, and it's about at this point when security grabs him. We go inside the academy where all rise to greet the Betazoid president, Sadal. Pete, totally connected to this moment. Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Holland's Opus?
I have.
Did you know that actor Anthony Natale played Cole, age 28, and here plays President Sadal? Anthony Natale, the notable Canadian actor who is also deaf.
I did not recognize that was the guy.
There we go. And here he is. Pete, he's the president of Betazoid. You'll never guess who joins him in the entry walk. It's the mysterious woman who is also dressed in white garb, just as President Sadal, and young man who looks to be of a sunly nature are walking as well. All sit. Vance welcomes Sadal, shares the news that the Federation is not whole without their participation. The president signs his response and notes that Vance is about to make the next request to lower that wall around Betazoid and I guess its surrounding areas. The Betazoid president has big asks, however, in regards to security, protection, veto power. And I think we can see, Pete, that the Betazoid president here, that Sadal is asking for more than his fair share.
Yeah, and it leads to a rather brief scene here, despite the fact that Caleb is button with his zipper, that they break off the discussion to take a look at the terms that they're considering and that they'll have refreshments in the good old Kirk pavilion during the hiatus.
Which is it a little too navel gazy? Is it at the right amount? I guess your mileage may vary. Um, we have the president's children, including Tarima Sadal, that's your mystery lady there, asking for a tour. A tour not from just anyone, but from Caleb. And Caleb, which I guess, Pete, here's a slight story quibble. Like, fine, the diplomat has asked for the handsome young rascal to give her a tour. It's actually give her and her brother, although we're about to see that the brother doesn't come along. So maybe that's quibble number one. Quibble number two, you would think the tour would begin immediately, or at the very least, Nala, after talked into it, would say, well, let's just have him change his uniform which leads us into the next scene. Instead, we just cut to the next scene where Caleb has turned this into a negotiation with Nahla. He'll do the tour if he gets time off for community service and access to stellar cartography. It is an amusing moment where he dismisses himself from the meeting, and he is reminded that people will live and die based on what happens here. Cool. He loves it here. Sarcasm, because it's how the youth speak, man.
I particularly liked him biting into the apple only to find it's a Verulian fire fruit. That because Nahla Ake is so long lived that she burned off whatever nerve endings she had like 300 years ago.
We go to that Kirk pavilion where Caleb again is leading the tour for Terima, but not her brother, who, by the way, gets named way later. He is Occam. Don't know if it's any relation to the Razor, but we see the kids in the quad. They're talking. They're playing the frizz. They're playing the space hacky sack. Uh, this is what the kids still do nowadays, right? This is like, you know, Alex Kurtzman, mid 50s, producer, director of this episode. He went to college like 30 years ago. This is what the kids do. Terima is looking for big things that are big, and you can't quite. There's this discussion here about your worries relative how you can't worry a whale. The camera's here, Pete. Let me say it finally. The camera here is not just handheld, which can be visceral or can be heartfelt or be in the moment. It is sloppy. It is sloppy. It's not just the moment's supposed to be carefree, not sloppy. This is poor camera operation, period. I can't imagine what the editor thought of this. Luckily, the director is also the producer, and et cetera, et cetera. It's about when I noticed here for the first time that Terima has the sparkle on her tooth. If it was in prior scenes, I must confess, Pete, I missed it. But
Mhm.
here, are you ready for the way the youth speak? The scene starts to wrap up with Caleb saying he has to quote, or he quote, has to do a thing, close quote, because Pete, it's tough talking to girls, them youth. Take us to
Yeah.
stellar cartography, won't you?
In stellar cartography here, uh, he obviously has the need we've established to try to find Goja 5. And wouldn't you know it, Matt? Oh, wait, what are you looking for? Somebody on that planet, somebody that he cares about. And she has access to the Betazed governmental star charts, which, because this is how stargazing works, Matt. Apparently from Star Wars Attack of the Clones, that some things have been erased from the system.
Yeah, again, I don't fully understand the particulars of how that is the case. I will grant the story this, particularly seeing as how I just took it to the Boothby Memorial woodshed for the camera work in the last scene. You want to say because of the burn, and indeed they do, there's some dialogue here that Goja 5 formed post burn. It's been behind the psionic barrier. I don't understand all of that. I don't understand how all of that works relative to the great knowledge that people in the Federation in general have, or just star charts on Star Trek starchart.com or whatever it is in the 32nd century. I will grant the story that they say the things that create this condition, even though I don't fully understand it. Fine, it's behind the psionic barrier, and a planet has formed in the last 120 years, and now is a place you can be. I'm still kind of shrugging. I wish you could see me, Pete. My hands are up in the air as I shrug, but I will grant you the story has told me these things, and thus they are.
But storytelling 101, Matt, we're late. Arrive to scenes late, leave them early, so say the commandments of screenwriting. That Admiral Vance is making compromises on the terms put forward there. You don't get all what you want. you get some, and of course, that the president of Betazed says that somewhere in the galaxy, the Venari Rao just celebrated, given the terms proposed.
Pete, you know what the best day must be for some of these cadets? The ones that get to stand in a V shape behind the diplomatic negotiation slash debate club slash theater, and to be like, yes, I get to stand while the future of the Federation gets laid out in front of us, um, for also educational purposes, which, Pete, I will have to confess, I've never been in a diplomatic negotiation. I think part of the reason it's done behind closed doors is so you can have moments of like, cut the baloney, blah, 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 or yell, 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 and let's take five and come back, whatever, posturing and this and that, the other, as opposed to, like I said, debate club. It's good for TV. It's not the first time Star Trek or anybody else has done something quite like this. It was kind of a weird decision here. And again, I would say, and I'm throwing rocks a little bit, but it's within, hopefully inside the Star Trek tent, as I said before. This is a decision I'm assuming has been made by director of The Mummy, Alex Kurtzman, not great architect of all this great Star Trek, Alex Kurtzman. It's a moment of like, this will look good on TV. And it does look good, even though I was wondering things about that. But Pete, let's talk virtual camera moves here, okay? Going across the bay, moving across Alcatraz, okay? Alex Kurtzman, okay? J.J. Abrams, the Alcatraz series, kind of it's
Mhm.
all connected. Um,
R.I.P.
there you go. As legitimately here, Pete, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk here. As they move into, again, it's the one room, which now is different. I was like, oh, look, Caleb is showing her uh, computer presentation of the humpback whale thing that she mentioned. This must be a science classroom, and this is the smart board. No, they're actually treating it as though this is, again, it's a classroom in the exact same shape of the other AR wall classrooms we've been in, but it's meant to be looking out into San Francisco Bay, which, Pete, I guess is deep enough for humpback whales. I genuinely don't know one way or another.
It's not believable as presented. It really isn't.
And
Like,
the whale doesn't
it,
look good. Bottom line, it does not
yeah,
look good.
you had me emotionally, but from a visual standpoint, it just does not as presented.
Particularly, let me pitch you a slightly different version of this. And look, the fact that, okay, the whale doesn't look great, it needs to be ready on the day you film. I am sympathetic to that. How about go across the street at Toronto Pinewood? Go across the street to the Strange New Worlds AR wall, which is, they already have the programming dimensions for and so forth. And include in your whale animation just some black bars that are meant to be, the plexiglass frame or whatever, and be like, here we are at the aquarium. Cool. Pete, I don't know where the San Francisco aquarium is in the 32nd century. Call it somewhere else. And
Right.
then we'd say, okay, the whale doesn't look great, but they're at the aquarium. Cool. Versus, I've now seen this set. This is the second or third time this episode. If you combine the two together, we've seen this set as stellar cartography. We've seen this set as med classroom. We've seen it as Reno's display. And again, I'm sympathetic towards Star Trek or anybody else reusing sets, but we've been there now so many times. You walk in and I go, oh, it's another classroom that has the blackboard in the wall, and the blackboard can do all sorts of animation. Cool. And then the animation doesn't work. This is just a scene, a scene that's not a home run. The only way it could get worse, Pete, is if there's about to be a kiss, but then Dad interrupts, and now it's the Federation versus Betazed, all because Caleb there wants to kiss a lady.
Yes. And for Ake to be disappointed in him, but he's got the news about Goja 5, but for her to blurt out that it's not about him, right? That's a lesson that needs to be learned right now, despite his inability to hear it. But then tonally, Matt, we cut out of that scene. If you bring Picardo's doctor back, you've absolutely got to allow for the character's love of opera. It's one thing to have the opera club. It's another thing to have him singing here with the ingenue, with the diva, in one of the heads brought over from the 50th anniversary from Star Trek Beyond.
Star Trek Beyond should have won the Best Makeup Oscar. It had 50 aliens in it. Instead, Pete, we can now officially say,
Including Jeff Bezos.
is that true?
He was an alien,
Okay.
yes. And he's
Um,
still an alien.
Luckily, Pete, and I say luckily in quotes and like icicle font, Star Trek Beyond was beat by the Oscar winning Suicide Squad. No, the.
Yeah.
Forever, Suicide Squad, Oscar winner. Pete, they're at a diplomatic reception, though. See, right, we got the doctor and Shellhead lady on the second level. Camera comes down using the set to all its glory. The Betazoids arrive. They are, Pete, well dressed. Gene would have approved. Um, William Ware Theiss would have approved. William Ware Theiss might have added less coverage and more danger to things going pew, pew, falling apart. But nonetheless, I think they both would be happy with some of the outfits here. The president is more favorable, has a more favorable view of things now. Maybe he's just more generous. Vance updates that Paris has been indeed picked as the new old capital of the Federation, which I'd say, Pete, though I've had some complaints hither and yon in this episode, um, I did not peg this as a mid-episode update of a thing that's actually going to pay off at the end. I was just
Mhm.
like, oh look, there it's more Star Trek stuff where they're saying, hey, Star Trek Paris capital, pat me on the head and say everything still is the same. Thanks for being here.
Thok telling Reno here that it'd be quicker to just have them get it out of the open and fight to decide things there as we're panning all around the reception. Sam, not so much a bullying situation, but being told that she gives unpaid dating coach energy by other cadets there, um, confiding in Genesis. Really, the person who always seems to be cool to get it within their age group.
It's a nice moment here. We return to the diplomatic conversation about good intentions and best steps forward. Maybe, Pete, that's kind of the show in a nutshell where they're like, hey, you might be here, you olds might be here for nuanced discussion about how to evolve diplomatically across political, military, and science concerns. Meanwhile, the kids are like, how do we get along and how do we make friends? But regardless, Caleb and Tarima step aside with that other guy following. And Pete, he must be the big brother because he calls Tarima little sister. I see what
Mhm.
you did, episode. You figured out that we don't exactly know who this guy is. And maybe we'll name him by the end of the episode. But Caleb and Tarima meet outside. As for the dot on her neck, it's a neuroinhibitor. It cuts off her empathic abilities as she feels things more than other betazoids. If she loses control, it can hurt people, but that doesn't scare him. He recaps his kind of, like Little Mermaid want situation. I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to find mom. Um, However, he's unwilling to make his tragic backstory part of the tour. Pete, I will say here, Caleb here acts angry or displays angry acting, which is my way of saying I don't think this is a particularly well acted moment here from the young actor, and I look forward in the future to being blown away by his range. And we all have our off days.
But that they didn't confide in one another, leading to the conflict that he wasn't going to put his tragic backstory out there, and that she storms off ultimately, um, to a point where we're not sure we can return from, as the Federation and Betazed also have their differences.
We see that Nahla Ake is still explaining her particulars, doubly so for Caleb's background. She references being a free range parent. Sadal believes in strong fences around children, too. But he's received only empty words. They will leave in the morning. It is all falling apart. He walks, and Vance affirms his instinct from before that Sadal came here to say no. The next morning, in Caleb's quarters, Nala stops by. He's not a little kid anymore, but imagine what he could be with an education. He notes that in physics, there's always something that can be built that sets off a thought in her mind. Oh, he's a genius. And I'll say, Pete, even though I did not love these two scenes back to back, I understand the need for things to start to fall apart. I also appreciate that in this ensemble cast, Caleb and Nala have a special connection, and here him talking about something literal has sparked a solution in her mind. So again, even though I'm not 1,000% kind of loving the emotional truth of it, I understand the story conceit of it.
So Caleb catches Tarima and is allowed to have a moment with her just before the Betazoids are preparing to leave, because he's got to disclose that the Federation was also the villain in his story, too. His mother taken away, all of that, so that she now has that context, and understanding the bigger world that she sees for her people and those of her generation, to bring everybody back to the table here. Um, and we get our compromise, Matt.
We do. It is all, by the way, done in the Sato atrium. Again, kind of fan servicey, but I will say it is a place where paths cross, and named after that great communicator of the first Enterprise. Um, Nonetheless, Nala here in Debate Theater Quad reflects on the virtues of a new future, and the new capital can be on Betazed, if you'll have us. With that, Pete, the youth of Starfleet Academy, the youth of the War College, the youth of Betazed all stand showing support, um, which might be vaguely overhanded, but also is also a very sweet moment, and also a wonderful moment as well, as we have the president here, Sadal, taking off his translation device to say in his own voice, to say yes in this moment of a Star Trek victory.
So it's back to Ake's office here, where Starfleet intelligence, they got to Goja 5. However, no sign of mom. Pretty lawless place, but they did find an encrypted flight manifest, with his mother's name on it, that was headed to the Ramoff sector 3 months ago. So it will be episode 3, The Search for Mom, Matt. But she lives.
Maybe one day her next warp will be the warp home. Um, but yes, with mom out there among the stars, Nala throws Caleb another one of those fire apples, and Caleb goes back to the dorm where Beta Z Bro Occam has now joined the academy. He's a roomie with Caleb and Durem. As for Tarima, I have to admit, Pete, good little wrinkle here. She's joined the War College,
Mm-hmm.
which I can only imagine the story potential. I don't mean to talk theories, which is this notion of she's at the other end of the campus at that other institution. So sometimes there, sometimes not, whether it's sneaking out, whatever it is, there's lots of potential there. With that, Pete, okay, what is the way a cadet might best start their day? We were told at the top of the episode, it's also the best way that fighting cadets can learn to help each other. And what is that, Pete?
I don't remember.
The bros are
Oh,
going to
making
help.
the bed. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The bros are going to help each other make beds because Pete, one of them used to not have a bed and one of them is used to it. And maybe they're going to work together to end the episode.
Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations.
Pete, we have a tactical analysis of this week's threats. Let's start with Nusbraka.
Paul Giamatti. That's all you need to know. Okay, and that the show was conceived, and he had been nominated for Best Actor, and within that junket, oh, I'm a massive Star Trek fan. So, we could say what we want about Kurtzman's direction of this episode, but as far as shepherding an era of Star Trek that has now yielded as many shows as came before his time, smart enough to know, let me reach out to this Star Trek fan. And given the choice of all of the characters on the show, I don't think he could have played the cadets, but he might have chosen to play one. Who knows? Okay.
Oh my God, a
He did
55-year-old cadet? That would be funny. If he was so
he did
inclined, that
not
would be funny.
he did not choose the lead, which I think is to our benefit with Holly Hunter. It I think changes the show. He chose the villain, and um, to have him recur here, albeit not in the second episode, but his presence is still felt, and we just wait for when he pops up again.
Yeah, I can only infer that coming off of, let's not forget Emmy winner, whatever it is, 15 plus years ago for John Adams, like coming off of this high point of an Oscar nomination, call your shot. And if your shot is, I don't want to, I don't want to work the same job for 8 to 10 months on a series and everything that comes with that. I want to be special guest star who the production is in charge of getting my hotel, and when I got other things, we can schedule around it. Maybe I do 2 episodes of whatever it is. That's not ego. That's you call your shot. He's 58 years old, not 55. Like make it what you want it to be at that point. Um, so that's all a plus there, and it's a super juicy part. I mean, it's a super juicy part. He gets to be at 11 every single time with the ridiculous makeup and the hairstyle and the finger tip rings and the whole 9 yards. There is an argument to be made that it's the best part in the entire show because he just
Mm-hmm.
gets to be ridiculous the whole time and then by virtue of the story not there the whole time.
His decision, you think, Giamatti's decision to do the Vulcan salute as the door closes on the shuttle, improvised or in the script?
Pete, I like to think that he's such a big Star Trek fan that he has been watching Lower Decks and knows that Lower Decks occasionally used it as a kind of stand-in for a middle finger or a sarcastic hand gesture that's maybe not as lewd as a middle finger. And I like to think that maybe he was just like, if they were doing it on the Lower Decks, they're doing it 800 years later. So Vulcan salute to you, buddy.
There you go. Um, as far as our second episode here, Matt, the Betazoid president Emrin Sadal and the presence that he brings.
I mean, first and foremost, I was momentarily took note of the fact that the character and by extension the actor is deaf and uses sign language. And I love that the episode, I mean, it's Star Trek. Of all places, it's Star Trek. Of course it is a complete non-issue. Of course there is assistive technology. Of course there is There are others around him who have learned to communicate without assistive technology, which is to say with sign language. And of course, he can read lips. Like the fact that it is treated as a non-issue is a reminder of what Star Trek can do, just as to a much smaller degree. I'm sure you noticed, Pete, there are cadets in wheelchairs and so on and so forth. Like this is the Star Trek future. There might be times that you go, oh, in classic Trek, they must have been like, hey, congrats, you made it out of the crazy 60s. There's going to be a bright, shiny future. And maybe nowadays we need that boost, or maybe nowadays we feel that same pessimism, however you want to approach it. But what a great addition here to bring that actor in. I'd be curious to know at what point did they match up? Like I would imagine, Pete, there's only so many deaf actors in Canada in Anthony Natale's age range that would be perfect to
Mhm.
play a president who also has two adult children as the story requires. But I mean, it's just
I mean, you
win, win,
blew my
win.
mind going back to Mr. Holland's opus. I'm like, oh my God, that's that actor here, obviously, um, of age to carry that across. And, I think the deaf thing just adds a wonderful layer of nuance to the characterization, right? Like, and it brings in the idea too of foreign dignitaries not often speaking the same language, and that you'd have the translation and everything else for a species that is empathic. Um, so yeah, it's done really, really well, and in classic Star Trek episodic form to turn a threat into an asset by the end of the episode. Yeah, the way to do it here for really what becomes the pilot of the rest of your series.
Let's use our long range sensors to scan for theories. I guess, Pete, let's start with maybe the most obvious. When do we hear from Noose Braca again?
Gotta be soon, right? Like, even if it's just a scene in the next episode, Giamatti's back for the season. No word yet that he gets to the now filming season two, but will absolutely be back and bring in that menace.
And then similarly, how soon until the search for mom? Uh, I would suspect that we are going to be addressing it in some sort of way every episode. Do you think, Pete, we're going to advance that story in the next episode, or after it's been a key component of these first two? Is it maybe a case of like, oh man, well, we can't do that search while we're dealing with the engine rebuild this episode, so it's kind of on pause. Your thoughts there.
That 10 episodes is now the standard for a series. You could lay off one episode, but you've got so much story to chug through in that time. You'd need to do it again very soon. Um, the thing that struck me watching the first episode, that the show began filming in August of 2024, that Tatiana Maslany was not cast until October. Um, that they needed to go back. It's one thing to mention mom or that you wouldn't have seen her, but they incorporate her to the very first scene of the show, right? Um, so they clearly revisited the idea and that it needed a little bit more. And it was big news around Phantastic Geek headquarters, bringing over the lead of She-Hulk, and having a blast podcasting the meta series there on the Marvel side. So to add Star Trek to that now, um, yeah, I mean, it is simply a matter of time. Much like with Braca, you might take an episode off, but presence will be felt again soon enough. Real question though, Matt, can Scrap come back? Can the robot teddy bear turn back up? I know it's a tough sell for a 21-year-old to get his robot teddy back. It didn't go with um, mom, which would have been a way, but I don't know. Could we say somehow they could reincorporate that and maybe his roommates could tease him about it?
I mean, I have multiple thoughts. First of all, the notion that she joined later does fit with, and again, you can say, hey, we're not going to film such and such scene until we cast the actor, and if it takes 4 weeks, great, you go back and like, I understand stuff can be filmed out of order. However, I think it is interesting to note that this first episode is almost exactly past an hour. It's almost longer than an hour by the amount that is this
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago portion. And
Yep.
I think there's something to be said of not just needing to say, hey, you were that kid I rescued, like show, not tell, all of that. Across the first two episodes here, no surprise that um, Captain Ake is, the number one lead, Holly Hunter, her age, her Academy Award, her resume, etc. The story has favored Caleb across these two episodes. That's only been reinforced by the prelude or prologue 15 years ago. Um, I do. Let me choose my words carefully here. Again, Pete, this is fully inside the Star Trek tent. I love 90% of everything that's happened in the Kurtzman era and so forth. I wonder if maybe part of the reason Caleb is getting some extra focus in this second episode, which, as you had said earlier, frequently the second episode is like the first episode of the rest of the series. It's like a pilot for how things are going to be now that the table has been set. The fact that we're paying attention in the second episode to a square jawed, handsome, heterosexual young man going after a pretty girl. Um, maybe that's a maybe that's just an organic choice. Maybe that's a way to say we're going to address a variety of things in this beautiful Star Trek story that shows infinite diversity and infinite combination. But maybe that will forestall the worst of the people on Twitter, etc., from taking the of having fake anger and so on and so forth. That just crossed my mind there as a production theory. I will admit that sometimes you got to protect your flank if you want to keep making more episodes, whatever that might look like, the whole show and business and all of that. As for when mom will show up, I would be okay with next week being like a welcome to the classroom. We're going to focus on Genesis. We're going to focus on Sam. We're going to focus on Jaden. We're going to focus on some of these other people. Um, I would kind of welcome that because I almost like those characters more than Nala and more than Caleb at this point. Or at the very least, I want to find out more about our ensemble.
Bajor, the Badlands, and Benjamin Sisko be far behind.
I mean, look, gotta respect the fact that Avery Brooks has said and said and said Star Trek is in his past. I do have, and this isn't quite a spoiler, new listeners, I run spoiler free. I believe I recall hearing that there is some sort of upcoming reference or lesson on Cisco in the classroom or something like that. So if that's going to be his return in terms of them looking back across the centuries to the mighty story of Captain Cisco on Deep Space Nine, that'll be more of the delightful references slash fan service. If and when that comes, I don't think we're going to get more than that. But I was going to say time will tell. I don't think we're going to get more than that because Avery Brooks has just been very firm in saying, beautiful time, 7 years in the can. Let me show up occasionally at conventions, but the past is the past.
We have our first female Jem'Hadar, although part Jem'Hadar, part Klingon. in Laura Falk, and how we can explore that species, that combination, albeit through a teacher.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I think it's smart to have drill instructor persona at the academy. It's smart to have someone who's not who's the opposite flavor of the flavor that Holly Hunter brings. And you have not cast Holly Hunter to play outside her normal persona or her strengths or however you want to say it. Like this isn't like, oh, Holly Hunter was unrecognizable as we paid her Holly Hunter money. Like this is all smart storytelling here. I would say too, it's interesting to have Jaden be the guy from the warrior culture who wants to find a different sense of spirituality. He's not without those Klingon principles, but he's articulating them differently. But then it all does also help to have somebody who's full on warrior
Mm-hmm.
mindset, and you want to say she's Klingon and Jem'Hadar. Pete, because it's the theory segment, I will just nominally say I could give two hoots that 800 years earlier in the Star Trek chronology, all Jem'Hadar were male. Furthermore, and I have to admit, Pete, I don't have this particular part of my notes in front of me. Which parent is which? Isn't her mother Klingon and her father Jem'Hadar?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, okay, like, Pete, I don't know much about how when Jem'Hadar and Klingons reproduce. I don't know. I don't have the exact, whatever that little chart is that we all did in biology, the dominant gene, the recessive gene. Limpet chart, something like that. Anyhow, I don't have that in front of me. Maybe all Jem'Hadar still are men. I don't know, Pete. I understand how the manse and the woman's work to make a baby, at least in the genetic sense and all that. So that all checks out, and I don't have any. But the Jem'Hadar was all man's, and I'm a man, and they've taken away my Jem'Hadar parts. Like, no, we don't need any of that fake outrage. It's all good to go.
Is Genesis Dadmiral somebody we've met before?
Oh, well, what a really good question. Um, I'm trying to think back how many admirals we have met in this Discovery era. So I'm going to say
And
no
we
to.
rule Vance out.
We
It's a
can't.
different last name.
Yeah.
She has a different last name. Interestingly enough, they've not spoken it yet on camera. Also, there's something about a Star Trek character named Genesis.
Um. Well, okay. A couple of thoughts. Let's finish with the Vance, the Vance part here for a second.
We know he has a daughter.
We know. Yeah. Like, look, we've already seen in Lower Decks this last name game meant
Uh-huh.
to hit a turn. If they did it again, my first thought would be Lower Decks did it better. Okay, and then I'd say, oh man, look, I'm a Star Trek fan claiming that the older thing did it better. Maybe I need to take a breath. Furthermore, I'm not here to say last names need to be exclusively patrilinear, especially in the 32nd century. So that would be interesting. Here's what I'm going to propose, Pete. If you're in the writing room for when this first season is evolving, or maybe it doesn't get addressed in the first season, it's a second season thing. If you're in the writing room, you say, let's leave a little space for this. Maybe it's Vance. I would also like to propose Pete, because again, I can't think of like, oh man, I totally hope it's Admiral so and so from Discovery who was amazing. But maybe it's an opportunity to be like, I don't know, pick anybody, whether they're of Star Trek lineage or not, to sit and go, holy crow, I can't believe that they got Tom Hanks to come in for one scene and to play Admiral live, if that is indeed Genesis's last name, or whoever. Or it could be, oh man, look, they got George Takei, who's like, they say I look like Sulu. Or any one of those kind of things could be fun, whether it's funny, fun, dramatic, a stunt casting kind of moment. As for her name of Genesis, I know, Pete, you're saying, right, Genesis device. Isn't it also just meant to be like a really cool contemporary to then, contemporary to now? Like there's a reason it's not Susie or Janie, right? It's Genesis because she's really super amazing and the
Yeah, you
first
could
and the
shorten it to Jen.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, and wait,
putting
you had brought up one other thing, which is
yeah,
the toy. I would like to
yes,
say, especially Pete, since that portion of the story was shot later into the production here, I'd like to say one word 3 times: merchandising, merchandising, merchandising. How about this? Let's not get to the end of 2026 without what's the thing's name? Scrap. Let's not.
scrap.
We need to get Scrap the toy officially on sale on through the Star Trek shop. Uh, I bet you that's going to happen. I bet you
As long as they do a better job of making that than they do with our t-shirts.
you mean you don't think they should AI create a thing? Um, but yeah,
No,
I think.
they're the fabric they put the t-shirts on just falls apart.
Oh well, Pete. Not everything can be replicated in the future here.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't think it's crass to say maybe that they put that thing in there for a marketing opportunity. And my goodness, you can somewhere, I think on the Star Trek shop or whatever, you can buy Moopsy from Lower Decks,
Yes.
let alone all the ship stuff through the official. Used to be Eagle Moss, and they went out of business. I don't think there's anything wrong in this day and age of softly inserting something that potentially could be merchandised later on. And I think for that reason, Pete, when mom shows up, she's going to be like, I have to admit, maybe the chronology of Scrap the toy, maybe we see Scrap abandoned. In fact, maybe we do, but maybe mom will be like, I rebuilt Scrap and I kept it in my bag all these last 15 years. Go to
Maybe
StarTrekShop.com.
scrap broke her out.
Yeah, there's all these potentials, right? Yeah, there's the little you can get the deluxe Scrap toy that has the shoulder comes out and there's a little screwdriver in there and a little like light
I
up
need an
thing.
episode with just almond basket and scrap. Okay, from
Yes.
their point of view at the academy. Like, give me that.
I mean, all yes, all yes. Put
And the children shall lead.
there
Right.
you go, Pete. I have a.
Um. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
The war college rivalry, right? And that, come on, in all the marketing, Tarima's wearing the white, and you were like, okay, is she medical? Is this, a nurse costume? That kind of thing. That, okay, the backstory with her as a lady of the preeminent house of Betazed, but that she's gone to the war college, right? Like, and how that advances that rivalry there.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a really smart bit of storytelling because again, it's giving our Romeo and Juliet characters. It's giving them a wall to separate them. No Beta Z or other wall metaphor, intended. But it gives enough to say to keep them separated. And then when she does show up, now he's rooming with the bro, and the bro can be like, "Get away from my sister." Like again, on the one hand, you might call it low hanging fruit. It's familiar because it's part of the human story. It's relatable. Um, I really enjoy that. Pete, I'll also mention I I enjoy Stephen Colbert. Okay, Colbert Report, Daily Show. Before that, I don't watch a ton of the Late Show. I wish the Late Show would stay on forever. Pete, if you want me to get free tickets for us to go see the Late Show before Colbert and it end, um, let me know. We can figure something out. I'll say this: too much. There's too much of it, and we don't need. I understand we live in this Netflix, etc. world where you need to make sure that the kids on their phones and the adults on their phones that are just listening to these TV episodes know what's going on. But like, do we really need like, bing bong? Now is the class is over, and now you go eat lunch for the characters that will go eat lunch. Bing bong. Now we all need to reassemble to see President talk to Vance because it's important time. Like it's too much with Colbert, and too much storytelling leaning on him. And I found it to be too much, even though I got no beef with Stephen Colbert.
I don't either, and that good nature allows me to accept it, but to a lesser extent of what you're saying. Um, Tarima with her neuro inhibitor and the idea of losing control, right? When's that happen? During a war college exercise between Starfleet Academy and the war college?
Pete. No, no. It's going to be, I know nothing about the future here, okay? But it's going to be when circa episode 5, 6, 7, okay? It's going to be when the the baddies, whether it's the Giamatti group or whether it's somebody else or it's the new Breen rebels or whatever it is, it's when they show up and all of a sudden battle at the academy. Well, luckily we have our war college friends and let's all get our phaser rifles. Oh no, I can't believe Santiago, who was introduced in the last episode, just got vaporized. And then it's going to be, oh no, wait, why is the ground shaking? Her thing is off. She's a weapon to both sides. Oh no, what do we do with that? What metaphor, or is that our to be continued, or whatever it is? I think that she is the nuclear bomb that's going to give us a countdown. Um, Maybe even be, I'll say what's in my heart. Maybe that's the poison pill that takes her out. Like maybe she's only a one season person and whatever. She turns into a space swan and can't stay on Earth or something like that. But um, I I think they're going to hold on to that for something seismic.
So what's the bracelet? Is that a way to stay in touch? Is it simply a visual reminder?
Um, Pete, I noticed several aspects of her presentation and clothing. I have to confess, I did not particularly notice the bracelet. Maybe the bracelet is just a bracelet. With that, Pete, let's open hailing frequencies.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
To Twitter we go, Pete. Okay, what some people call X, fine. We ran a poll. How would you rate this double offering? Did it get one red dot for red shirt? That got 14.3%. I look forward to a nuanced response to that, explaining why they felt it was a 1 out of 4. All views are welcome. Did it get two cadets for cadets, being 14.3%? Did it get three commanders? That was 0%. How about four chairs for the captain's chair? 71.4%. Some replies here. First one from It's Twitter Not Life at KCLYLE1, who says, loved it. I like that they took a new direction. I'm enjoying most of the characters and willing to give others a chance. Hunter is great. Does the Doctor not have the mobile emitter? He said the holographic system was out, but he was still there. It's far in the
Mhm.
future, so maybe there's a different system going. The ship design was very cool, and some of the new alien makeup is outstanding. The whole visual of the show is amazing. I'm not surprised that the quote unquote fans were crapping on it before it even aired, but it's very disappointing. People act like they're being forced to watch it, or that the whole history of Trek isn't available to watch. The worst part of fandom is the fans. I wasn't a fan of the song at the end, although I like that version. I would have rather heard the Star Trek theme, but I get it. Also, the intro with the ships changing from one to the next is incredibly cool. Looking forward to more. Suck it, haters. Also, I don't think. Don't think we didn't notice the Asian ensign on the bridge. Is he going to get the Harry Kim treatment? I think all the others were all lieutenants. Well, I have to go back and see.
Yeah.
I hope we don't have any ensigns stuck there. I will mention, Pete, I think the reference to the holographic system being down was no holographic assistants were available, i.e., the one that later on sprayed the goo away.
Yes. Yeah. They hadn't cast her yet. um, but you don't see talk of an emitter for Sam either, and obviously you've progressed 900 years since he's needed a hollow emitter, which actually came from the future. Remember, okay, that he's now outpaced um, post temporal wars. So it's an interesting aspect, and I'm sure that we're discussing it now, it will eventually come up.
Particularly, like, it's such a juicy storytelling thing. The emitter is damaged, the this, the that. It's kind of I don't want to say a story crutch. It is a story tool to cause problems. But back to Twitter we go. Hearing from James the Sagacious at Big Killin, it might be the best second episode offering of a Trek series to date. The pacing was amazing. The War College was brilliant and will pay off for sure. So much fan service is happening in the background. Discovery will have to be in the shop every episode. The kids really look great on screen together. It wasn't hard to believe that they could come through a crisis together just to get home. I want to rewatch just to catch all the goodies in the background. The Doctor's opera in the background was brilliant, and me now, I'll stop. But then PT continues, which is great because we love James. Tig and Gina look like they're having more fun than anyone
Hmm.
before them. Disco suffered for having too many great characters. So far, Starfleet Academy feels more balanced. Most impressively, the show captures the tone of post adolescence and the joy slash torture of dealing with young adults. Good stuff
Yeah,
there.
and smart for them to mention Discovery, right? And that a spore drive could jump them right in, and they'd be able to immediately solve that situation for the Athena, but they needed to solve it on their own, right? It's so smart the way they baked in their first mission before they even get to school. That they've survived that, that they've had that as a bonding experience. That's the way to do it instead of, and here we are at school, and it is the first day.
Last tweet comes from Terry Womack. That's at Terry Womack. This was not the best offering from the new franchise. It seems they are trying too hard to copy the other series instead of building an independent storyline. However, the Jem'Hadar Klingon woman is a fantastic addition. I look forward to her story. Overall, 3 out of 5. And I'll say this, Pete. I'd like to give 5 out of 5 for Terry, who said from and franchise and forward, and of course, fantastic, all the PH.
And we'll agree on Laura Thok there.
To the email inbox we go. We're going to hear from Dustin, who says, friends with a PH. We woke up early and were able to get through episode 1 of Starfleet Academy before starting the day and came out of the episode completely thrilled with what we got. We'll enjoy episode 2 after work, but wanted to send my early thoughts before reading any reviews elsewhere. While the hijacking of the Athena in episode 1 had some real stakes for our ship and characters, the resolution gave us great character building and flexed the style of the show in an enjoyable way. Really well done stunts and action, which I don't always need, but was impressed by. I look forward to settling into some lower stakes as we move through the first handful of episodes. Only complaint I have is the unrealistic latitude in punishment and commutation of sentences handed out to our lead cadet, as though each judgment and sentence was rendered at the sole discretion of our chancellor. It's a complaint I'll log here and move on from, though, as the rest of what we got in the pilot really exceeded my expectations, and I'll just suspend disbelief regarding 32nd century sentence judicial proceedings and go with the story they want to tell. All in all, this was a great start with wonderful canonical nods throughout and just a lovely cast I'm really excited to get to know better. The credits at the end in the movie era type font, and seeing Tony Newsom as a producer credit just left me feeling warm and happy. Lovely 60th anniversary show opening graphic. I'll enjoy each time I see too. Thanks again to you both for providing your thoughts and reactions in the after show. I look forward to always. Best from Dustin, aka El Dustino.
Thank you, Dustin. And we also have an Apple Podcast review, the first to the Starfleet Academy feed, written by El Dustino.
Ooh, what does that review say?
Well, he gives us 5 stars, Matt, and calls us a crisp glass of synthale to wash down each episode,
Wow.
and writes that fantastic geek duo of Matt and Pete provide great recaps, analysis, and discussion for every episode of each property they cover. And as a longtime Star Trek fan, I don't miss an outing. True fans themselves, they've developed a great show format with excellent takes on what works, what misses, and how each show fits into the larger pop culture sphere.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And the best thing about Synthahol is it's good for you and doesn't get you into any trouble. So hopefully that's the same for our family of podcasts. What other feedback do you have?
To the Phantastic Geek subreddit, Matt, at r/Phantastic Geek, where Kips247 weighs in thoughts on first episode, good initial character intros, and a bit of Prodigy mixed with Discovery. So I think a lot of hardcore Trek fans probably won't like it. But to me, Trek is Trek. So better than no Trek. Okay, that needs to be on a poster someplace. Okay, like the fact it is also a ship so they can explore and a strong start an enemy. Second episode, lighter and a bit of a filler, heavier on the teen high school drama, which was expected. P.S. Thought Holly really needed a hairbrush until I remembered Sir Pat said they don't care about hair in the future. Then, yeah, made sense.
I would agree that in the future, beauty is in many forms and et cetera, et cetera. However, maybe I shouldn't be watching a TV episode going, that hair is kind of crazy. But maybe, Pete, maybe outside of that episode, maybe the now is when Star Trek is teaching me lessons to say, hey, let's impose less my view of beauty, presentation, et cetera, and let's go with the captain's view. So, Pete, I've had my little story arc here. What a beautiful moment. Now, Pete, do you remember at the end of Star Trek Six? Okay, after the villains were squashed and the heroes have saved the day, how there was the slow applause, and the applause grew and grew and grew as the greatest officer in Starfleet history was then acknowledged along with his crew.
I do.
I'd like you to imagine that moment now as we welcome back to the podcast somebody whose name should be on that wall in the 32nd century at Starfleet Academy. I am, of course, talking about Admiral Fred from the Netherlands.
Hello, Matt and Pete, and all listeners to Phantastic Geek. This is Fred from the Netherlands with a little feedback for Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episode 1. Long time no hear. Well, that's not a real expression, probably. A long time no see. But whatever. Last feedback I gave was last May. But this new Star Trek series provoked me to start giving a little feedback here. I really, really liked it, and that's not only because of that. In the opening scene, I suddenly was very nicely surprised by seeing Tatiana Maslany. Wow. As you know, I'm a tremendous Orphan Black fan, so I really hope she will come back in one of the next episodes. I just watched the first episode, so I only can give feedback about that. Great world building, great visuals as always, just like in Discovery. And of course, very cool that the starship just fits into San Francisco's main Starfleet campus. I like the cadet master, Lura Tok, with a combination of kind of Klingon attitude and a Jemadar appearance. I don't recognize a lot of Klingon in her appearance. A lot of action in this episode, of course, and that's good. Perhaps a little bit too much, but okay, for this pilot, it's okay. A lot of exposition, of course. We have to getting to know the characters, and that's quite up to speed, I think. When Darren goes outside and changes his appearance, it looked a bit like the Silver Surfer. So with all these different kind of superheroes with super abilities, it becomes a kind of superhero setting. Well, that, of course, you will like probably as a crossover between Star Trek and the Marvel Universe, since you podcast about all Star Trek and all Marvel. I had a little problem getting used to Captain Nahla Ake. I think the way she sits in the captain's chair reflects how her hairdo is. Perhaps sitting is not even the right word. Better is hanging. Well, that could be comfortable, but the way she hangs there doesn't look comfortable, so it's a bit over the top. Or perhaps a better word is unnatural. A bit of a trope here that was that Nosbraka's ship and crew were blown up, but that he did escape. So we will see him back for sure. My biggest question is, will we see Tatiana Maslany back? Okay, that will be all. Greetings, all the best, Fred from the Netherlands.
Again, Pete, how wonderful to hear Fred's voice over our subspace communications. And not that I think Fred is pessimistic in any regard, but it was nice to hear him sharing praise for the design, the characters, even, we all recognize there's a certain degree of exposition and so forth. And basically the pilot landed with him.
Don't provoke Fred, Matt. But thankfully, we will see Tatiana Maslany as well. So I'm glad Fred was surprised. And there's more surprises on the way.
I'd say I chuckled at his comment of Darum is, well, not literally, but Darum is the Silver Surfer, question mark. And Pete, if nothing else, big thanks to Fred for shouting out all that we podcast, whether it's the entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all the prior Kurtzman era Star Trek series, DC, Star Wars. It's like Fred gives us a chance to hype our other stuff here that was completely organic. So the wisdom of Admiral Fred's leadership here.
Yes, and none of that podcasting would be done without the help from the good people of patreon.com/fantasticgeek.
Indeed, and we thank everyone for that support, for that ongoing support there. Could not do it without each and every one of our listeners. And just especially this time of year where some of those bills do come in. Next one is actually, I believe, at the end of this month, maybe first week in February. That ongoing stuff for storage, bandwidth, all that boring stuff that is in the background but makes the Pac-led ship go. But Pete, let's keep the Star Trek conversation going. And since Fred mentioned it, the MCU conversation, the DC Universe conversation, Star Wars conversation, how can people be in touch with you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Threads. You can find me in Blue Sky at Peter, Pieterjay, Ketelar, Ketelar, 12,600 followers. Can't be wrong.
And while I'm personally on Twitter as Looking Back Lost, do be in touch with the podcast. Comment on phantasticgeek.com. Check us out on Twitter, Threads, Gmail, Blue Sky, Instagram. But wait, Pete, there's even more.
Facebook.com/Phantastic Geek. And do not forget about the Phantastic Geek subreddit at r/Phantastic Geek.
Pete, we welcome new listeners to our Starfleet Academy feed. Longtime listeners know it's also being simulcast on our pop culture podcast feed. And though we do have some Marvel for later this month, the next time we will talk on either of those podcasts is, of course, next Star Trek Sunday, talking about the third episode of this very same series here. With that, I will say adios to all listeners and give you, Pete, the final inaugural word.
Class dismissed.